Guys, make some noise one more time. All-time lows right here, right now.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here, and congratulations on a hell of a record, man. I got a chance to listen to the whole thing. Absolutely loved it.
We have a record?
You got a record. This is it. We're looking at it.
How'd you get it?
Wow.
Very carefully.
That looks
Thank
cool.
you,
The right people. Yeah, and I think one of the things I loved about it so much was I went in with certain expectations and came out the other side with a totally different story than I was expecting.
Yeah.
You know, this is an evolution. It's a brave departure. It's all these wonderful things. Let's talk about the easy part. When did you start working on this thing, man? How long has it been in the works?
Started working on this record about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
We were sort of at the tail end of our Future Hearts cycle. We still had more to do. We had more tours lined up, but we kind of had a feeling that we should get a head start on some music. So we started writing songs all the way back then, and then kind of, you know, put a pin in it and came back to it. But the majority of the record came together last year. We took some time off and go ahead, please. Please.
You're doing a great
I think
job.
you're just saying yeah.
Continue. You're doing a good job.
Oh, yeah. Took some time away, and I took some weird trips out into the desert and into the mountains, and like kind of came up with this whole concept of this person right here,
Yeah.
and yeah, from there it was this story that I felt like we could tell with the music, and then it was kind of a process of going back and looking at what we had written the year before, and kind of bringing all the elements together.
For sure. There's a lot to unpack here, sonically, thematically, and we're going to get into it, but I would be remiss if I didn't back you up for a second and ask you to elaborate on some of the weird trips you took. What was the... Let's
funny way to
go
put it.
down that road.
I was hoping we could just breeze over that and not go there.
Legally, he's not allowed to talk about it.
Yeah,
So.
I'm wanted in several states now. No, it was kind of I had never done anything like that before. I think a lot of the time when we had worked on records in the past, we've always been in major cities and places where there's a lot of distraction and a lot of other things going on and things pulling us in all different directions. And for that reason, sometimes I felt like we were always coming up with songs, but not necessarily thinking about the album as a whole, because there just was never the time to spend on it. And this time it felt, those trips kind of became a way for me to detach from everything and look at the record from the big picture standpoint. And that's really kind of where the concept for the album came together, and this idea of telling this fully fleshed out story in a way.
We should think of a different word other than trip.
And fleshed.
A flesh trip. It was
I hate the word fleshed out.
You don't like fleshed out?
Disgusting.
All right, we'll arrive at something in the moment, I'm sure, but we definitely won't say fleshed
We got to work on that.
extrapolated.
We'll come back to it. Ooh,
That works.
That's not bad.
What
What
is it?
do we have? We had
Flayed?
Flay.
All right.
Blade?
Fair enough.
Flayed it is.
I guess that's the one we're going with.
I like it.
It's funny that you mentioned that you guys were just writing songs and that you weren't sure what the direction was going to be, because when you listen to this album, there's a very clear voice, very clear story, very clear direction. That a decision was made at some point in that process, especially lyrically. I think things get a little bit darker than usual. Still totally, I don't know, palatable, I guess is a word you could use, but like still great songs and still great thematically. But when did you have that revelation that that was a direction you were going to be heading in?
It was sort of, I feel like halfway through the process was really when everything started coming together. It was apparent to me that a lot of the songs had a theme and a common thread, and a lot of these qualities that were tying them all together. And that's what kind of got us all thinking about, who this was about. Was it me? Was it them? Was it about the fans? Was it about? And so we sort of came up with this character and a way to embody and a way to tell the story, but still being able to be, flexible and loose and malleable and work with all the themes.
Yeah, in the beginning, a lot of the songs, the ones that didn't make the album, it's crazy. When we'd listen to them and pick our favorites, it just happened to be that the ones we picked were a little darker.
Yeah.
And I don't really know why. Or maybe we're all not doing well. But
We can talk about that another time.
We're fine.
But no, it also allows for the record to, as far as lyrical content goes, to take you on a little bit more of a journey than a fleshy trip, if you will.
Fleshy trip.
No,
A
because
flesh trip.
as opposed to
Some might
all
say.
just being up here, all being down here, it allows for a little bit of ebb and flow and a little bit of valley and stuff. So.
Yeah, it feels
of a
like the character was kind of a revelation in a way, like an opportunity to really take the album in different places that maybe you couldn't before in the past. Was this an idea that was totally new to you, or was it something you thought of maybe before, but it just never fit the project at the time?
Alex been trying to write a comic book for about 10 years now.
No, I think it was something that just felt appropriate with this one. We had the song "Last Young Renegade" as a standalone song, but then it was kind of, as I said, like the more we kind of went into this record, the more it felt like we were writing about this persona, and the last Young Renegade then became like a way to like really see that through.
Yeah. Was there ever, considering like the departure from your typical sound, was there ever a hesitation or a concern with like how the fans may feel or interpret it, sort of like that Metallica cut their hair moment? Like,
We're more worried about that.
I'm just trying to grow my hair back out.
Yeah.
To
I think
be
as
more
long
like
as our
the-
hair is good, everything's fine.
Yeah.
I think that was the big takeaway.
That's really
from
the
that, right? It
general-
was really just like keep your hair where it should be. And
Yeah,
you'll be
just
all
have
right.
good hair and you're fine.
I think as long as it feels honest, and you know, it feels real and it feels like all time low, even if there is a departure. There's nothing. We don't listen to these songs and feel like that was too much or anything like that, because it just. He wrote what he wrote. We all wrote what we wrote, and it just worked in this package.
Yeah, I think what was a challenge with this record was coming up with something new, you know, reinventing and staying exciting. I think we've been a band for 10 plus years now, and we've sort of lived in a few different worlds, but I think predominantly it's always sort of been like pop rock, and so it was just a way to shake things up and create something that was not only exciting for us and made us, you know, excited again about the new music, but also, you know, keeping everyone excited that, you know, listens to our music. You know, I think it's really easy to become old hat, and you know, we don't want to go back and write the same album every couple of years. So that was a big part of it. And then also it was kind of a way to supplement the live show too. You know, we sort of looked at it like, what don't we have? Because we were playing longer and longer sets, and the shows are getting bigger, and you know, it's sometimes that context. You're kind of like, oh man, it would be great to have a vibe like that. And so we chased a lot of that as well, which was really fun. And also our fans, and this is no joke when I say it, we've been really lucky to have a fan base that, I know it sounds cliche to say, but like we've had a fan base that are really supportive of giving us a wide lane to work in, which has always been really cool. So thank you guys for that.
A round of applause for yourself for being so awesome. You see how uncomfortable some of them were applauding for themselves? Like, is this...
It's never easy.
Yeah.
It's never easy.
Well, still, you are
love
awesome,
it.
and you should feel good about it. I wanted to ask, and I think you kind of touched on this a little bit, but going into and sort of exploring this new sound, was there this idea, specifically, we need to incorporate synths in this kind of vibe, or was it more of like a vibe and a tonal thing, and like, oh, I've messed with this and this makes sense. I want to put this in here, and I want to. Like,
You know what it really came down to, and I've said this before, but it was really that me and Jack were watching a lot of Stranger Things while making.
We
and
got,
it was
like,
just that,
really,
that
really obsessed with that
I was
soundtrack.
just so into it, and then
didn't that touch and like influence, man?
yeah, well, I think actually it's kind of funny to start with something that basic, but really like to that idea, it really was about the fact that I was watching that show, and I was also listening to a lot of music from my childhood, music that my parents listened to and that I grew up on. And one of the big things that really came to mind was this feeling of nostalgia, and that kind of like what that meant. And one of the visuals I always go back to is that feeling of being like 8 years old and watching like Ghostbusters for the first time, things like that. Yeah. And how do you come up with a sound to recreate those feelings? How do you put that into music?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we started using were going back and kind of finding vintage synths and things that we had never worked with before on a record, and I think that really helped to kind of help form this nostalgic aesthetic that the record has.
And it's just like a nice texture that we're not used to having in our music that kind of adds a certain feel to every song. Even if, no matter what lyrically is happening, it still kind of grounds it within the whole record.
Yeah, texture is a great word. There's a ton of different texture and sort of like soundscapes that really fill up the space when you're listening to it. And you also mentioned when it's it works when it's honest, and I think that's a great thing. I think there's a lot of bands that have been around forever and they try to reinvent something, but it sounds a little forced or like they're just trying to do something gimmicky. This feels like an honest direction. Like you guys are genuinely trying to tell a story, and these were the sounds there.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome, for sure. Thank you for the record. But what I want to know when you're talking about sort of finding a sound that hits a certain emotion or triggers a certain feeling, is it really as simple as sitting in front of a cool, like, badass old synth playing with the thousands of knobs and dials? And
Yep.
there you
What's
go.
this one do?
This is it.
Maybe a
This
little
is the one.
tequila in there as well. But,
Yeah, I didn't know until we did it, but yes, it really it's crazy how we worked in a few different studios, one of which was East West Studios, and we were in room 3, which is known for like they recorded Pet Sounds there and some really iconic records. And so walking into a room that had that much history, I found myself like going in and just touching things.
Yeah.
And being like, give me vibes.
Frank Sinatra's piano was in the studio that we recorded the album in, so there's a little bit of that on the album. But also, we just got like a crap load of guitar pedals, and like made sounds that didn't sound like guitars. Like a lot of times on the record, you'll hear something.
You okay?
Yeah,
You
I'm
having
having a stroke.
Screaming at himself.
And,
Here.
God damn it, Jack. And you'll hear something, and it will sound like a keyboard or a Juno or something, and it's actually a guitar, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and more importantly than the instruments themselves is that when you do have those tons of pedals or those tons of knobs on the synth, it just inspires you to write different. You know what I mean? So like, it's not necessarily you're going to use these knobs or these crazy things, but it makes you think, oh, that sound can be there. Maybe we can put that in this chorus, and it just kind of opens up this whole other thought process.
Especially, I'm sure something happens mentally too after years of sitting down to write in a very specific way with a very specific set of tools.
Yeah.
Now you've got this whole other kind of canvas in front of you.
And we didn't really have a timeline. You know what I mean? Like we were doing a record without most of our fans knowing we were even doing it, which kind of lent a little bit more of a, okay, we don't have a week in this studio. We have a month. We can kind of relax and do this, which is really cool.
You guys also, you had a co-producer on it, but you primarily self-produced, right? Which was, is that like the first time you guys have done that, right?
Yeah, more or less. It was kind of a joint effort. I think one of the really cool things about this entire album was that we really just surrounded ourselves with friends. You know, some of the people I wrote the songs with are just homies and guys that have been, you know, so it was us and then all these friends that we know that have been making amazing music. So Blake Harnage works with Paris and was in Versa Emerge, and we knew he would bring something really new and fresh to the table. And then our other guy, other producer, Colin Britton, who has worked with many of our friends' bands. Yeah. And we just sort of, it was really like the entire time, the energy was really cool. There was never any sort of, I guess...
There's never a boss.
Yeah, there was no one... Yeah, it was always sort of like, let's just do what feels good. And I think that's why the record feels really honest. And
it's very collaborative is the word, I think. It's just like, when you have a big name producer and someone who's done some of your favorite records, it's one of the best things in the world. But there is a sense of like, okay, this is a god. Like
they're always right.
Right. And even not of their own fault at all. It's just going to happen. So when you're in a room with a friend and something like that, it just becomes a lot more like give and take. You know, there's no right and wrong. It's just let's share ideas and see what happens.
There was no ego and no feelings. So it was like if something was a really cool idea, that would blossom into something more. And if something sucked, no one was afraid to be like, nah. So it was nice.
Does that, though, and that all sounds incredible, but what I've seen before in the past and experienced myself personally is that when you lack that boss, it's hard to say that this thing is now done.
Right.
Well, that's why track 8 is a 20-minute guitar solo.
It's also crazy. We finished what we thought was the album, and then we got the Blink tour, and so we went out on the Blink tour with mostly what we thought was our album finished, and so we had like 6 to 7 weeks on the Blink tour to actually listen to our album a bunch, and we came back and some of the songs we were like already sick of, and like we're like this doesn't really fit. And we went back in and recorded. Alex wrote 4 or 5 more songs that made the album. So the whole album changed because of the Blink tour. If we didn't do that, it would
just step away, a forced step away.
It gave us perspective and helped. It kind of again with the whole idea of the loose concept that's on the record. It actually like served to give us a moment to be like, is the story told to completion? And that was one of the biggest things. We didn't have a last song that felt right. Like the back half of the record didn't feel right to us, and so I went in and wrote Afterglow, and it kind of tied everything together.
Great song.
Totally. Talk about sticking the landing.
Thanks,
Ryan and Zach together. Yeah, you guys historically have been a rock solid, like sonic backbone. Like it's super important. Yeah, indeed. Microphone cheers in order.
Where's this going? But recently.
Yeah, but I gotta say on this record in particular, no. But what I'm curious about is, did the dynamic or did things sort of change for you guys now with electronic drums on the track, electronic synths and bass sounds and different textures? Like, how does that change what you guys do together and going into this?
Well, it was cool. I mean, much like the other instruments, it kind of stretched your creativity a little bit because for every sample drum part you hear on the record, everything that sounds like electric drums, generally I'm the one playing it. So it might have been on a real kit that then they replaced some stuff. You might hear just the room mics from my kit. But it made me think, okay, if verse 1 is going to be most likely a drum machine, how would a drum machine play this? And it kind of, it just made me think not just like big sounds and like huge rock drums. And it forced me into a different lane a little bit.
We also did a lot of really kind of experimental, weird stuff with the real drums. We would have him, sometimes we'd try to program it and it just would sound kind of cheesy or dialed in or a little bit like, okay, everyone's done this. So there were times when we would go for creating something that we wanted to sound not obvious, and we'd have him go in and play it on a drum kit and then run it through like a bit crusher and just completely ruin it sonically. And that's actually a lot of what you hear on the album.
And then, like, we had 3 days to do drums, and I got most of it done in, like, a day or two. Not saying
Get it,
good
man.
drummer,
You're really
but
good.
We had plenty of time. And so, like, the third day, we set up a little mini drum kit in the vocal booth, which, so, of course, it's just super tight sounding and almost fake sounding. And a lot of that made the record. We had, like, all of us up playing floor toms together and rim clicks. It was just allowed for a little bit more freedom.
Life of the Party has a full drum line on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really.
All
it's
of us playing
I, I never thought I'd say this about our band, but it's it's a headphones record because like you notice more and more when you listen in a enclosed environment.
Well, that was the thing. Yeah, I was listening to it on a couple of different headphones because I was commuting back and forth and just playing the record on loop. And you hear all these great details, which leads me perfectly into the next part. I just wanted to talk about like, a couple. Like I wrote down some notes as I was listening to it, and I had some great moments that stood out to me. The opening to "Good Times." You've got like this airy, ethereal, like electric vocal line almost, and then like the super clean guitar. I mean, I defy anyone to find anything on the previous stuff that sounds exactly like that.
I wonder if everyone here is really bummed because they haven't heard it.
No one has any context for this.
I'm gonna kill you. Give me your ears. Give me your ears.
Literally, that vocal line it's me singing and then pitched up and played back through a keyboard. So I played it back in.
It was one of those things where it's like, did you find this by accident, or did you? Yeah, or were you deliberately like? Yeah.
We took a line from the song and chopped it up and ran it through a synth.
I think the craziest thing about Good Times is it was the first song written for the album, and Alex sent it to me in an email like a year and a half ago, maybe even longer, before we even started writing for this album, before this album was even a thing. And he sent it to me, and I called him. I was like, this is the best song you've ever written. Like, it blew my mind, and it was the first song, too.
It's a jam.
So so I said that, and it just got me so excited for the record process. We were unsigned at the time, so I was like, this is insane that we're going to take this song to a record label and be like, what do you think? Because I know they're all going to be blown away. So he sent me that song, and he wrote it with, our best friends, Alex and Dan, who we grew up with, and Dan taught me how to play guitar, so it's a song, it's very nostalgic, and it was kind of cool that way. But, yeah, so that song was kind of the backbone of the whole album, and we kind of like built the album around that song.
No way. The nostalgic roots run super deep on this, man, like in a lot of different ways. I wanted to know, and again, I apologize, you guys haven't heard it yet, but just like this testament, you should be more hyped to hear it. I mean, June 2nd isn't that far away. But
setting the bar real high for everybody here. Like, please enjoy it.
No, it's a great listen. It really is. Nice to know you. Where did this fall in the writing process? Because I mean, for a record steeped in nostalgia, this one almost feels nostalgic for some of your older stuff. Like the way it starts, comes out of the gate. Like the 4 on the floor drums, the good descending guitar riff, all that stuff. It feels kind of old school. Was that one of the earlier tracks you wrote?
It actually wasn't. It was kind of in the middle of the pack, and it was really a product of us feeling like, we're not going to make a record that doesn't have our bread and butter on it. Yeah. So it was still really important for us to go and write a couple down and dirty, songs for the halls and the mosh pits and stuff like that. So that was kind of the thinking behind that. But I think at the same time, we still wanted to marry in all the elements from the rest of the record, so there's still, the connective tissues.
There's still synth textures filtered throughout there. The verses are very subtle. Like, no, for sure, it fits in with the record, but you could hear sort of like that older stuff there.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
We're gonna go to audience Q&A in just a second, but the last track I wanted to hear about and talk to you guys about is the one you did with Tegan and Sarah. It's awesome. Just
Thank you.
A little bit of that story. How'd you guys decide to collaborate with them? What was that process like? How did the writing go? All that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we wrote that song, Ground Control, and I knew that it should be a duet. Like, we kind of wrote it as a duet. There was a version where I sang the chorus, and it was kind of it felt like a placeholder. We had a similar situation with one of our older songs, A Love Like War, where I sang the whole song, and it felt like something was missing, like someone could bring something to it, and that's how we ended up having Vic on that song. And then it was kind of, it felt like a similar situation with this. It was just like someone would pull this all together and really make it connect. And I've been a fan of Tegan and Sarah for a long time. We were listening to them while we were in the studio.
We knew from the beginning, though, we wanted to be a female.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was always
we
sort
didn't
of
even
a part.
Consider a dude for that part.
Yeah, it was always sort of a part that felt like it lent itself to being a female vocal. And they just they were at the top of the list when we thought about who could we possibly get to do this. We threw a few names around, and they just sort of stuck out as being like, that's one, they'll nail it and it'll be really cool. Two, I don't think anyone would expect it. So that's kind of going with the theme of like, let's do some things people wouldn't expect with this record. That was part of it. And we sent them the song. I'd never really met them before. I think we might have met them in passing. Sent them the song, I was like, hey, what do you think? Do you want to be a part of this. And it ended up that there was like mutual fandom there. They had been listening to us for a little while, and so that was really cool to find out. And yeah, so I think those are kind of the best collaborations when things come together that way.
Yeah, well, it definitely rounds out that back half of the album. It's great. June 2nd, can't get here soon enough, guys. I'm telling you, you're really going to dig it. That's a fact. Also, you are kicking off your headlining tour June 30th in Houston, right?
We are.
So big summer. It's going to be a good one, yeah, for sure. Guys, it is your turn to ask the questions I did not ask. So go ahead. There's some mics out there. We're going to start. Who's got a mic?
By the way, really well done. You're very good at this.
Well, thank you, sir.
Yes,
I appreciate
very good.
that.
It's almost like you're a
I
professional.
hope they're paying you enough because you're great.
Oh, yeah. I get paid in mugs of water.
Perfect.
I noticed, hey, can we just, real quick, can we talk about the fact that there's 2 mugs out here, and I feel like maybe one is the right decision and the other
The other's a surprise.
Is this like a sort of, like, one, you're going to feel great later, 2, you're going to have diarrhea later? Like, what's going on?
That's either of them for me.
The thing is, we switch it every time, so I can't tell you which one it is.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
One's water, one's vodka. You just
Yeah.
got to go.
I'm in.
Whatever.
First question,
Hi.
please.
Hey, hello. What's
Hi.
up?
What's up? I thought the album art is really cool. I want to know if you guys could talk a little bit more what inspired the character and the creative process behind it.
Yeah, so a guy, our friend Sam Spratt designed it, and he is an incredible graphic artist. He's done a lot of stuff that I really like. He did a lot of the artwork for Logic and for just some amazing like visual stuff. He kind of came up with the design. I mean, we had one long phone call one day, and I sent him like 6 of the songs, and then really talked just about what the record was about, what the themes were, and he sort of came up with this. He kind of came up with the personification and I like the fact that you kind of don't really know the gender or the like who it is or who it's meant to be. It kind of represents everyone, and that was sort of the idea. We wanted to embody something that was very flexible. And then everything else that's going on around them is kind of all the influences of what they're going through, and it's sort of all exploding at you in this chaotic thing. But it's so cool. And like I go back. There's actually more to it. He drew it as a mural, so it's like it extends beyond the panels of the CD, and you guys will see that soon. But yeah, it's just a really amazing piece of art that he came up with to kind of tie the songs together.
Pretty insane too how with so much going on, this is pretty much the first draft. Like there wasn't a ton of back and forth. Like he nailed it. I mean, granted, they talked for a while, but with all that information, you'd think one of us would be like, no, this is no good. But he did a really good job.
That's also a really complicated thing to do, like as a designer, to have that much and have it look composed and not like a big mess. Also, I want to call out, I love the little sumo diaper demon babies that are all over it. Those are pretty awesome.
They'll bite you.
Yeah, you get that vibe.
They'll bite you.
For sure.
Those are Alex's inspiration from the writing trip.
I think my favorite one is how buff this guy is. He's so strong.
And is that a giant bottle of booze, or is he a really tiny diaper baby demon?
That's for
up
you
to
to
you.
find out. It's all on the record.
All on the record. That's why it's a headphone
Track
record.
7, Tiny Diaper Baby Demon.
Next question with the microphone over
Oh.
there.
Look who it is.
My name's Matthew. Sweet shirt, by the way. Great shirt.
You're the same shirt on.
Hey, nice.
So you guys were very sneaky when you recorded this album. Pretty much nobody knew that was going on.
Ballin'.
You released 3 songs, kind of 3 different vibes, but still all-time low when it comes down to it in the end. Upcoming tour, upcoming album. Fill in the blank. Are you guys stoked, anxious? What would you say if it was all-time low is blank right now?
Anxious.
good.
Anxious pretty hit. It's pretty hard.
Yeah, like anticipating I'm just so excited to share it.
Anticipatory.
I think every time a song has come out, it's felt like a weight's been lifted because we've just been so like anxious to get this out. And we knew that we were sitting on something slightly different, and we knew that at first people would be like, whoa, what? This isn't what I was expecting. Or and the reception has been just really cool to see people at first thrown off and angry or shocked or not sure what to make of it, and then kind of come around and be like, okay, I'm starting to get the picture. And there was like it was very intentional how we released the songs too, something very different with Dirty Laundry, and then kind of coming back to a song like Last Young Renegade that feels a little bit more like what people might be used to, and then again going off on a slight departure with Life of the Party. There's a lot of twists and turns like that, and it's kind of, with the volumes and the way we've been putting out the videos, it's all kind of building towards the release, which I think sets up the record really nicely.
One thing that really helped, like as far as the nerves go, especially for Dirty Laundry release, was
Xanax.
when we played
Never fails.
Ton of Xanax.
when we played it for the first time. We were in London, and it was like 5,000 people, first time we've ever played it, and they all were singing along by the second chorus. It was incredible. So to see that right away, it definitely like quells the nerves a little bit. Quells?
Quells.
Fleshes?
That's a word.
Fleshes
Fleshes out the nerves.
Yes.
Quells the flesh?
I'll allow it. Yes. We'll
Yeah,
allow
right,
it.
we're getting word now. We're getting
word.
word now that we're going to allow it. Music videos. Is there going to be? Are we going to get a part 4? I know there were 3 parts.
Yes.
Oh, well, there we go.
I'm just gonna say, yeah. There's we're building it out, and obviously, I mean, a lot of people have been very like there's a lot of Easter eggs and things to figure out in the videos that we hit, and people are on it. They're figuring out. It's like, oh, each one has a jacket.
If the police ever need to find like a murder suspect or something, like just go to our fans. They can find anything.
yeah.
You guys are like,
100%.
I read some tweets.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit, they're right. Oh, pardon me. I don't.
You can curse. It's the internet. There's no rules out here.
The web.
I think we have one more question. Microphone is already in the room. Oh,
Hey.
Hi,
we have a
I'm
bunch
always
more.
really interested to learn what music inspires the artists I listen to, so I was wondering what music you guys have been listening to lately.
Good question.
Kendrick Lamar.
New Kendrick record is fire. Really, I was going back, at least when we were writing the record, I was going back and listening to a lot of older stuff. Like I said, especially with like a few of my favorite artists passing away, I was going back and listening to like Prince and Bowie and like absorbing and what made them so legendary, trying to like process that. And then also, I mean, there's so much good music.
It's kind of interesting. I've been listening to a lot of indie rock recently, like Glass Animals and I don't know, like alt nation stuff, and it's interesting though because
Just he can remember one band.
one band. Well, I like the music. Phoenix
Phoenix just
has
put
an
out a new
unbelievable
song,
song
yeah.
out, and it's like it's weird because it's funny. Indie bands only sing about heartbreak too. It's so funny. Like you think of like emo bands being like the heartbreak bands, but no,
The new
indie bands
emo.
only sing about heartbreak. It's really interesting.
Yeah, when we were making the record, we were for sure listening to a lot of that kind of older stuff. And honestly, since the record's been made, I took a break from listening to it. But more recently, I've just been diving into our record again and kind of imagining how it's going to be live and reimagining how we can create, even a better vibe live and everything. So it's weird to say, but yeah, this new record has been spinning quite a bit for me.
Also, that new Paris though.
Yeah, New Paris is good.
Good.
New man.
For me, recently I've been just getting into the James Jamerson anthology, and he did so much in bass playing. And on top of that, Prince died on my birthday, so every time my birthday comes, everything's like that, I kind of dive back into that as well. So.
Yeah.
I was incorrect, by the way, earlier. We have time for a few more questions. Now I'm seeing 2. So we're going to take another one wherever the microphone may be. Perfect.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Now, this is a question that actually is not related to Last Young Renegade. Alex,
Hi.
I've noticed.
Hello.
Hello.
This is
Hi,
for
everyone.
me. Let us have our moment.
Yes, let us.
Continue. Don't mind.
I've
him.
noticed that when you play, you almost exclusively play a Fender Mustang. And I'm wondering what it is about the sound of that guitar that draws you in so.
Really cool question. Actually, it's kind of the record making this record that got me there. We've been working with Fender for a while. I love their guitars, have played a ton of different guitars through Fender, and they sent us a bunch of stuff to try out in the studio and find new sounds. They knew we wanted to explore tones and things like that, and the Mustang they just brought back. So they sent a couple of those, and particularly the model with the P90s that I've been playing, just had a really interesting tone to it. It's those P90s. I'm gonna bore everyone with like nerdy guitar stuff here,
No,
but
this is good stuff. Go on.
those P90s have a really signature sound, especially when you distort them. They kind of still sound a little bit clean, and I've always really liked that dynamic. Green Day on American Idiot has that tone where it almost sounds like you're hearing 2 guitar tones at once, and it's kind of the only pickup and the only guitar that does that. So I sort of decided to make that kind of my sound for this album, and it's been just a fun guitar to play live too. So yeah, I had them make me more and paint them fun colors.
It's pretty awesome.
Thank you, Fender.
And our last question?
Last question is going to be from an online viewer. So
Boo.
AJ would like to know, what advice would you give your fans starting a band?
Give it up, kids. It's not that good.
The dream is alive.
We've done it
You
all.
guys
How
kind
do
of
we
are
look?
living the dream, aren't you? Like,
Ooh, that's tough. I think, I don't know.
What's crazy? My 15-year-old cousin my 15-year-old cousin is just started a band, and he just did an EP, and he texts me maybe like once a day with questions, which I love. I mean, I'll do that all the time, and he reminds me of when I was 15, how I, if I had an uncle or a cousin to ask, I would have. But and he asked me for advice. I'm like, dude, just go in the studio, make an album you love. Doesn't matter what kind of music, and play as many shows as you can possibly play.
That's what I was going to say. I think this day and age, especially with so much instant gratification, you make a song, you can release it right away to fans. I think some people get bummed out quickly when they're younger bands and they're playing shows in front of, 5 people, 10 people, 5 people. They're like, well, it's not growing. But, from 5 people to 10 people is very important. And it's important not to drone and like think on about it. Well, it's only 10. When can it be 100? It's just, that'll come. But it takes a lot of time. We played so many shows.
We spent years,
no one. And, it's just every other fan you can get, every +1 fan is very important. So
yeah, there was a time when 50 kids coming to our show, like we were like jumping up and down.
This would be a dream come true to have this many people in a room watching us.
Yeah, and it took pretty much all 4 years of high school when we started the band to build it from 10 to 50 to 100 to 500.
100,000.
So, and like it really took us 4 years just to get it in a place where it even felt like something that was not just a band in his mom's basement.
Yeah.
So we got really lucky that we got those practice years in before we made it a real thing. But that being said, even when we started this in 2006 on a label, there was so much work to be done. I remember the Hopeless pretty much threw us out onto Warped Tour, and we were like in a van, which is not a fun way to do Warped Tour. And it was like, we had to learn like everything as it went. We were out walking down the line every morning at 8 a.m.
Shorts.
I had to walk the line with a poster of us in our underwear. I got yelled at a lot. It was very, very abusive.
Bottles thrown at us.
Yeah, it was not fun.
Yeah, and it really was just trying to convince people to give us a chance and let us in, and that's kind of what it is. And you just, like you said, you have to stick with it.
And even to this day, I mean, this is extrapolated a little bit, obviously, but we'll play for 10,000 people in a city, and then a couple hours away, we might not be able to play to 1,000 people. You know what I mean? And so I know I'm not complaining about that, but even to this day, we're still trying to get those new fans and still trying to reach out and become the biggest band in the world.
I think this record in particular is going to help you go a long way with that particular mission. But I do want to ask, before we wrap things up, I'm curious, 10 plus years is a long time for you guys to be doing this and to make it work. It's longer than most. It's longer than a lot out there. Was it harder in the beginning to cross that threshold into a thing, or has it been harder to keep it going for 10 years?
I think beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for us it was harder to start, and then once we got that wave rolling, it's been a really fun ride.
There's no new surprises in a 10-year marriage. Like, it's not like you wake up one day, it's like, well, you have 6 toes? That's weird. I never noticed that before. Like,
I got into bondage this year.
That part was kind of cool.
Well, it's
There's no surprises, and it makes it kind of easy because we've just been living together for so long that we know what it's going to be like, and we hate it every day.
We know how much we hate each other.
And it's hell every day.
We do it.
With a smile on our
fans.
Going back to the beginning of this interview, a lot of Xanax.
A lot of Xanax.
This actually is vodka.
We've come full circle. Some would say it was a hell of a flesh trip.
And now it all makes sense.
That's it. That's how we do it. Guys, I want to thank you again for coming and hanging out with us. Congratulate you on the record. June 2nd, it's everywhere. June 30th, the tour kicks off. Thank you guys once again. Everybody make some noise. All Time Low.
Thank you.
Come on.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.